Hey friends, welcome back to another weekday of cooking and productivity. The weather has just been really blah today. We were expecting some of those severe storms that have passed through Texas and Louisiana, but it looks like they are bypassing our area. I was totally in the mood to make soup tonight, but my kids don't always love a pot of soup. So I was trying to think of something in the middle. I didn't want to make pasta, but I also didn't want to just serve soup. So I decided on chicken and dumplings. Let me know in the comments if chicken and dumplings are a thing where you live. I am not sure when I had them for the first time. We have restaurants called Cracker Barrel that are pretty famous for their chicken and dumplings. I've had many varieties over the years, but my favorite is definitely something that leans more toward what they serve at Cracker Barrel. So typically they don't necessarily have vegetables in them, but I like to add onions and carrots and celery if I have it on hand. And I did. I had some sad looking celery left in the fridge that I decided to use. These 2 whole carrots were all that was left from a bag of whole carrots. I didn't even end up opening this bag of baby carrots you see here because I had enough with the 2 whole carrots. They just add a bit more flavor to the broth and a little bit of nutrition to an otherwise very simple meal. I don't really follow a recipe for chicken and dumplings. Today I used 3 quarts of home canned chicken stock, 1 quart of home canned chicken. This was raw pack chicken that I had canned a few months ago. It really shreds up nicely in the pot and I think is perfect for a recipe like chicken and dumplings. In a pot this big, today I added about a tablespoon of garlic powder, a tablespoon of onion powder, almost a tablespoon of black pepper, and about half a tablespoon of salt. I put the pot on the stove and turned the temperature to medium-high heat. I want to bring it to a low boil so that all the flavors can incorporate and the vegetables can begin to get soft. And I went ahead and started on the dumplings. Dumplings are very similar to biscuit dough, like raw biscuit dough, that you will then drop in the boiling water. And some people love them and some people don't like them at all. I have a few children who, I think maybe 2, who do not care for the texture of dumplings and they give them to their siblings. I personally like them a lot. This is a fantastic comfort food in my book. All right, so the ingredients are just all-purpose flour, salt, baking powder, milk, and salt and pepper. I will leave a link in the description below to the recipe that I used. Now, keep in mind, I only used this recipe for the dumplings. I didn't use her recipe for the entire dish. You let this go in the mixer until everything comes together. All of the ingredients begin to pull away from the sides and a dough ball forms. I will typically let the mixer continue to go for another 20 or 30 seconds once the dough ball has formed, just to make sure the dough is nice and smooth. Now I turn the dough out onto a floured surface. I have a feeling I was probably supposed to let this dough rest for maybe 15-20 minutes. I didn't read the instructions beyond the ingredients, so I just went ahead and started working with it. I used a little too much flour on the countertop. I had to scoop some off at some point so I didn't knock it all onto the floor and make a giant mess. As you can see, it took a bit of work to get it to start to roll out, and that is the purpose of the resting period. It allows the gluten to activate and make the dough a little more stretchy, and it makes it easier to roll out. Look at that hole right there in the center of my dough. So once you get it rolled out to the thickness you want, which is totally based on preference, I usually cut my dough with a pizza cutter. It's just nice and easy, and I'm able to get evenly cut dumplings. Now, I've tried a variety of sizes over the years. If you've ever been to Cracker Barrel, their dumplings are huge, sometimes 2 or 3, even 4 inches long by maybe 2 inches wide. It's been a long time since I've been there. I decided after trying different sizes that we really prefer bite-sized dumplings, so definitely no more than about 1 inch by 1 inch are perfect, and they're probably about 1/4 of an inch thick when I slice them, and they plump up a little bit when you put them in the boiling water. I dropped all of these dumplings into the pot and reduced the heat to a low simmer. While dinner was cooking, I decided to make use of my time in the kitchen and make some banana muffins. I keep some of our most used favorite recipes taped to the inside of one of my cabinet doors. This banana bread recipe is so simple. It has 7 ingredients that you probably always have on hand, and I had 12 very ripe bananas, so I increased this recipe by about 50% today. Once I get all of the bananas peeled and in the mixer, I add the butter, turn it on, and let the mixer run until all the bananas are pretty well mashed up and blended in with the butter. Then I add the eggs and the sugar. I have reduced this sugar amount before. It just depends on how ripe your bananas are. Once all of that is incorporated, I add half the flour, blend well, and then add the remaining half of the flour, baking soda, and salt mixture. I love my KitchenAid mixer. I use it every single day. And when I'm making batters like for cakes or muffins, I typically let the mixer go for quite a while on a high speed. It just puts more air into your batter and makes your baked goods nice and light and fluffy, and it gets out any lumps. Time to check on the chicken and dumplings. It looks and smells fantastic. At this point, I put the lid back on and I turn the heat off. This will allow the dumplings to continue cooking in the hot broth, but it starts to slowly cool down so that by the time we serve it, it's just right. Dinner is finished on the stove and the muffins are in the oven, so I decided to go take these kitchen scraps out to the chickens. I like to think I'm their favorite since I always bring them scraps. This time of year, I'm in the greenhouse multiple times a day to check on airflow, temperature, making sure nothing is drying out. My seedlings are looking fantastic. I'm so excited to get them in the ground in the next week or so. We still have 2 more nights in the upper 30s, and I'm just not willing to take a chance by planting anything too early. I'll probably put my onion sets in the ground this weekend, and then over the course of the next week, I will put everything else in. Last weekend, I decided to go ahead and get my sunflowers started. I started 144 sunflowers, 12 different varieties, and I'm so excited to share the progress with you. Time to put another batch of muffins in the oven. I always use my 1/4 cup to measure out the batter, and I always use paper liners. Scrubbing muffin pans that have burnt, baked on batter is by far one of my least favorite chores in the kitchen. Into the oven at 350 for about 18 minutes, or until the tops are golden brown. Since the chickens have picked up their laying again over the last several weeks, I've gotten into a pretty good habit of water glassing all of our extra eggs. We have 2 reusable hard plastic egg containers in the fridge, and whenever those are full, I go ahead and put any excess eggs into a jar or a bucket and pour the water and hydrated lime mixture over them and save them for next winter. If you're unfamiliar with water glassing, I'll add the link in the description below to the video I made on how to water glass your eggs. It's so simple, and this allows us to preserve our fresh eggs to eat in the winter when our chickens stop laying. I think I checked the weather radar 4 or 5 times, and once I realized we had an extremely low chance of rain, I decided to put a load of towels and cleaning rags out on the clothesline. There were 9 of us home for supper this night, and once I put food in all of the bowls, the pot was completely empty. This almost never happens. I've been cooking for an army for quite a long time now, and I almost always make plenty with leftovers to spare. I knew my husband and a few of my kids were going to want more than 1 bowl, so in about 15 minutes, I was able to make about another half gallon of chicken and dumplings. I didn't have any celery left, but I did open the bag of baby carrots. I added some rotisserie chicken that I had in the freezer, and I made another small batch of dumplings. I must say the second smaller batch wasn't nearly as good as the first because it didn't sit and simmer on the stovetop for an hour, hour and a half, but it still made the rest of my family happy. Everyone had a warm muffin with melted butter after dinner, and we put the rest away for breakfast for the rest of the week. Let me know in the comments if you decide to try either of these recipes. Thanks for watching.